So I can see everybody's there. Let's start. Welcome people to our University of St. Gallen Digital Week 2021. It's the third time that we do this. Oh, sorry. Yeah. And today I have with me the Head of Executive Education for the Competence Center of Social Innovation, Dr. Rachel Brooks, and with her, the founder of Equal Profit, which makes this social innovation stuff reality, Inès Burrus. So welcome, you two, and I won't take more of your time. I leave the floor to you.
Thank you so much for joining me, and thanks to all of you for joining us today as we talk about this really important topic, how to leverage technology for social impact. So what I'd like to do really quickly is just share my screen. Let's see, I'll just give the tone free as well. I just want to share with my co-presenter that I solved our video challenges and I now have the video ready to launch as well. Excellent. So I'm going to jump right in. And what I'd really like to do is, well, first of all, figure out how to change my slides. What I'd really like to do is run a quick word cloud. So I'm going to share a different screen and ask all of you, how can technology help us change the world for the better? If you can go to menti.com and use the code 94845301, we'd love to see how all of you think technology can help us change the world for the better. And please feel free to use the chat function if you have any challenges with this whatsoever, and Julio will support you. So we'll take another, I would say, 30 seconds. See if any thoughts come in on how technology can help us change the world for the better. Now, I'm not sure if we have no answers or if our Menti is not working. So unfortunately, I guess we'll just have to launch back into our presentation. But I'm sure that that was food for thought and everyone has some now strong opinions, which hopefully we can build on throughout the rest of this presentation, and then more in the discussion at the end, we'll circle back to that. So what I want to do first is now hopefully successfully share my screen. All right, great. The bottom line is that business as usual is leading to this. What is this picture? Believe it or not, this is a picture of my home state of Texas during the deep freeze that we just experienced this past winter. I don't know if any of you noticed some of the headlines that came up, but the bottom line is that Texans were experiencing temperatures that they haven't, what the headlines were saying was more than 30 years it hasn't been this cold. But I can assure you that I'm more than 30 years old and I never experienced anything like that in my life. So both in terms of its impact on the climate and short-term practices that prioritize immediate profits over long-term impact, business as usual is making victims out of society. What led to this? In 1999 in the United States, the most extensive experiment in electrical deregulation meant that control of the entire electricity delivery system in the state of Texas was handed over to the free market. And that because of that, there was not much incentive to invest in the future. And there was no preparation for a situation such as this. So when the worst happened, all of the grids went offline and no one had any heat, any electricity. And this is an extreme example of extreme deregulation, which we do not find all over the world, but it really goes to show what short-term policies can do. So what is the role of business in the future? We all know, and if you're here probably already very well, that there are limits on planetary resources. And there's acknowledgement of this increasingly at a really high level. So in 2020, the World Economic Forum even opened a discussion around the Great Reset, particularly in the aftermath of the COVID-19 crisis. But what does it really mean to reset capitalism? This then falls back to us. But Larry Fink also wrote in his 2021 address to CEOs, how do we achieve this shift to net zero? And I know people working in sustainability functions in business now report that they're no longer dragging along or lobbying. They no longer spend all of their time lobbying for the importance of sustainability, that this is now acknowledged by investors and shareholders. So the bottom line is this is changing, and it's changing really quickly. So increasingly, the SDGs are no longer just about policy and civil society. They're also used by business to communicate about their sustainability activities and to align those activities also with their core strategy. And they're also really useful in discussing common ground across sectors, which is really critical when addressing such complex challenges. But how can business really take it a step further and build a commitment to social and environmental benefits, and even transform them and place this into their core activities? And what's useful when thinking about this is what many of you are probably familiar with donut economics. This is from Rayworth, and this helps us frame the challenge of integrating the activities of business with meeting the needs of all within planetary resources. And between the social and planetary boundaries lies this green space, this socially and environmentally just space in which humanity can thrive. And it ideally, in this model, in this framework, is the goal of business. All activities should exist within this green space. How do we do this? With a generative and distributive enterprise. This means moving away from the extractive enterprise in which we use, we ask the question, how much financial value can we extract from the enterprise, and into the generative enterprise, where we focus on how many benefits can we generate for society and for the environment in the way we design this enterprise. It also means going away from the centralized enterprise in which we look at how much value we can capture, into the distributive enterprise in which we explore how we can share value more equitably with all stakeholders. And the reason we're bringing this up is because we want to use this model also to think about the relationship between technology, social impact, and financing technology for social impact. But we'll move into that later. So all of this is not new. The challenge of addressing such complex problems and the importance of understanding problems has been something that has preoccupied us for a long time. So even Albert Einstein said, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solutions. However, when we're faced with all of these problems of the next several years that we have to achieve substantial change to sort of save the planet, it's a knee-jerk reaction to focus too quickly on solutions. And this can really limit our innovative potential. So first, we have to really think about how to understand the problem. And why do we need to understand the problem? And here, I'd really like to do a quick experiment. Hopefully this will work a little bit better than our Mentimeter. I want to ask all of you to use the chat function and share, what are the needs? What does this little boy need? Please write in your chat what he needs. It's a quick exercise, and there is a right and wrong answer, but it doesn't really matter, and we won't be able to identify you. Let's see if I see anything. Actually, Inez, would you mind reading out some of the needs? Because I don't want to take myself out of presentation mode.
Sure, let me just read it. So people say toys, help, ladder, a way to get the book, a lower board, help, wants to stretch, help. Excellent.
Okay, so we'll stop there in the name of time. Thank you very much for your participation. Actually, some of you already got it. A way to get the book is probably closest. What he needs is to reach the shelf. And the reason that and this is the need, and it's the way we can identify the need is by checking, is it a verb or is it a noun? Because if we focus on a noun, a ladder, for example, then all of a sudden we're committed to building a ladder. We want to get this boy a ladder. He needs a ladder. And it limits us when trying to figure out how we could really address this problem. And the problem this boy has is reaching the shelf. So this is a really limited example, but if we focus on reaching the shelf instead of a ladder or a step stool, then it opens up an enormous number of possibilities when it comes to how can we help this boy meet his need. That's the importance of understanding the need. So here, just in a quick exercise, we can start to see, and it's something you can use to test yourself. Whenever you're thinking about, okay, what do we need to do here? Is what you come up with, is it a noun or is it a verb? And if it's a verb, there's enormous innovative potential. And if it's a noun, you may be limiting yourself. So I want to talk about at a very practical level, the risks of thinking about a solution versus a problem first. And I want to use the example of a multinational company that I worked with. This company was a multinational food company, and it wanted to understand its social and environmental impact in its supply chains in sourcing communities, and it wanted ultimately to improve farmer livelihoods. However, before getting to know the real problem it was trying to solve, which was very different depending on which market it was in, obviously, was it decided it needed to build a measurement framework. And that meant all of its energy and resources went immediately into measurement framework, as opposed to getting a deeper and more rich understanding of what some of the underlying problems might be and how complex they were. And what this ultimately can lead to is limited impact in the area you're attempting to make positive change. So with the best of intentions, a solution orientation can be a big hurdle in creating social impact. Okay, so how can we foster social innovation for impact? First, we need to get to know the problem. And there's lots of ways to do this. And here I just show an example of the design thinking microcycle. You've probably heard of design thinking, of agile methods. A lot of these are focused on customer needs, on user needs. And so they have some really great methods and tools for understanding the problem. However, there's also other ways to understand the problem: basic ethnographic research, having conversations. But after we understand the problem, we have to then act. So build partnerships and collaborate to find new solutions, test, learn, and iterate. And most importantly for today, and what we're talking about today with leveraging technology for social impact, is scale. Technology is an absolute must today in today's world when it comes to scaling the impact of our social innovations for social impact. And we're going to talk about a concrete example, thanks to Inez, in just a moment. But first, what is the role of technology in scaling social impact? Recent literature has placed sort of these 6 dimensions around the potential for technology to scale social impact, or the potential to scale social impact, including financing, organizations, technology and data, strategy, institutional infrastructure, and policy. And we're focusing, as you know, on technology. But what we noticed when we really explored the case that Inez is facing is that there's a concrete and challenging interrelationship between financing and technology. And that's what we really want to explore today. So I'll just bring up 3 key points in advance of introducing you to Inez and her social business. First, technology is key for scaling social impact. And the questions: how can social entrepreneurs access capital to scale impact from innovation? And how can we reinvent financing models? This brings us back to Rayworth, from centralized to distributive. So financing models are also right now in the centralized structure. And how can we reinvent them to become distributive if we look at them in the context of this donut? So without further ado, I want to bring us over to Inez. So welcome again, Inez, also from my side. So Inez, could you please explain to me the grand challenge that equal profit is tackling?
Thank you very much, Rachel, for your invitation. I'm very happy to be here today and to be able to discuss about equal profit. So equal profit, just as an introduction, results from my PhD research, which research question was how to make farming attractive to youth. So this PhD has been sponsored by 3 multinational companies, and it results in different startups. And one of them is equal profit. So equal profit is a distributive and also a disruptive certification scheme. And the objective of equal profit, before we move to the grand challenge that it tackles, is how to ensure equitable value distribution among supply chain actors. So it goes directly into the slides that you have mentioned between centralized system to distributive system. So the grand challenge that it tackles is inequalities. So you have mentioned that we need to disrupt the status quo. In supply chain, the status quo is the following. There are imbalances of power, of wealth, and there are unequal distribution of profit among supply chain actors. So what it happens is that the efforts of those actors who are at the bottom of the global supply chains is not recognized. And these can be farmers, but as well miners. We see as well that inequalities are growing. So according to the UN, inequalities is growing for more than 2/3 of all the global population. And this is concentrated in developing countries. So what we are seeing is a vicious circle that leads to social instabilities as well. So the impact is huge.
So Inez, though, what about existing certifications, and why don't they do the job? What's actually missing?
Sure. So we see that existing solutions are insufficient. Existing solutions include minimum prices, premiums, and they are insufficient because they don't ensure a fair trade. They are really looking and focusing on farmers. And today we need to move towards all the supply chain actors and not focusing only on farmers. Another issue is that fair is a subjective word, a subjective concept, and it's important to move towards an objective concept. Maybe something, and I don't want to be too critical regarding existing solutions. I think that what is important to recognize is that technology today allows us to move forward and to move beyond existing solutions. And that's what we are trying to do with equal profit, and I will explain later how.
Thank you so much, Inez. So then tell us more. What does equal profit then actually achieve?
Sure. So we have 3 objectives. The first one is that we want to break power dynamics and create shared value in global supply chains. So to take into account all the supply chain actors and not only farmers. We are willing to ensure equitable profit sharing, profit distribution, and a prosperous income for farmers. So this goes as well beyond the question of living income and living wages. The objective of equal profit is that at the end, we are ensuring that the prices that consumers are paying are just, that there is transparency and traceability for consumers beyond equal profit distribution. Maybe let me explain how exactly it works. So on this slide, you can see 2 graphs. The first one is an unequal situation, an unequal distribution of profit. And on the right is exactly what the model does. It distributes profit proportionally to the costs of each actor. So in other words, proportionally to the effort that each actor puts into the supply chain. And this is really important to understand. For example, I don't know if we look at actor 1, and I don't want to have a chronology of actors in these graphs. It's really a standardized graphs. You can see that the cost is not proportional to profit, whereas in the graph on the right, this is proportional.
But Inez, forgive me, but why would actor 2 want to be any part of equal profit? It looks like you're putting actor 2 right out of business.
The objective is not to put any actor out of business, is to move towards a justification of profit. It's important to understand that supply chain actors are dependent with each other. And it's important to move towards a situation where everybody helps each other and make sure that the end product is the result of solidarity and not squeezing each other in the supply chain. This is beyond this thematic of sustainability or equitable profit distribution. What is important to notice is that it's about risk management. If you are willing to make sure that young farmers are still working in farming, you need to make sure that they have a decent living in order to continue to produce the raw material you're sourcing from.
Okay, so then tell us a little bit about your current phase of development at Equal Profit.
With pleasure. So we are a Swiss SARL. We have been founded in 2019 in Geneva. As mentioned, this model results from my PhD research. Today we are 5 people, so the whole team is not represented on the picture. You have just the roster on the right and 2 members of the team in the middle. Today we have 2 certified products on the market, which is coffee and chocolate, and we are willing really to scale up and to move beyond coffee and chocolate. The next product is fruit from Brazil, so very happy to also have this product in our portfolio.
So Inès, then tell us a little bit more about your coffee.
Sure. So this is the first certified product on the market. We are working with a roaster which is based in Vallis, and the name is, as on the packaging, he's called Shalala. And you can see on the packaging we have a QR code. The objective is that the consumers will scan the QR code and have access to our equal profit analysis that we will just show afterwards. What is interesting to see is that we are working with an indigenous communities in Mexico. And this model, Equal Profit, has really changed their lives in terms of how much they're receiving in terms of revenues.
So then let me briefly stop sharing my screen, and I'd like to share this this video that that tells us a little bit more, I believe, about what your business does. Can everybody see and hear this?
Con Ensambles estamos explorando diferentes formas de vincularnos con los productores, como de procesar café y como de comercializar café de una manera en la que se vea reflejado el valor de cada uno de los puntos de la cadena de valor del café. Es muy grato para nosotros haber encontrado la Equal Profit, esta iniciativa suiza, desde la cual se quiere precisamente establecer una relación con los productores para que el retorno final del precio que paga el consumidor final del café se distribuya equitativamente en cada uno de los puntos que genera valor al café. Los productores de café en México tradicionalmente han vendido su café a precios muy bajos. La mayoría de las veces venden su café a precios por debajo del costo de producción y muy por debajo del trabajo digno que ellos realizan para su café. El modelo de Equal Profit para ensambles y para los productores nos abre mucha esperanza y nos abre una puerta para explorar una nueva manera, no solamente de entender la economía del café, sino una nueva manera de que los consumidores finales puedan realmente estar aportando el valor real que tiene una taza de café, y vamos a darnos cuenta que ese precio que paga el consumidor final va a ir proporcional en los costos que puso cada uno de las partes que dio valor al café.
Wow, thank you, Inez. That's really a powerful video. So good. Then I'll go right back to this presentation and carry on. Why don't you share the story of your chocolate?
With pleasure. Maybe just before that, I think it's important to explain what is the profit distribution of the coffee. So exactly this slide. What I would like to show to people here is that today we have a transparency regarding environmental KPIs. I think that's the statu quo as well, and that's a great thing. Now we want also to move forward and to have this transparency in terms of revenues. And on the left you have, so that's when consumers scan the QR code on the packaging of the coffee bag, and there is the breakdown of the price. This is specialty coffee, so that's why you have the price that you can see. But beyond this price breakdown, what is important is as well to show what Equal Profit does. And this is the graph on the right. And it shows exactly what I mentioned before, is that profit is distributed proportionally to the costs or to the effort that each actor puts into the supply chain. So when you see that farmers have 31% of the total costs, they will also receive 31% of the total profit. So that's the bar on the right.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. Now, there we go. Chocolate.
Sure. So this is our second. This is our second project, our pilot project. We are working with Banyan Alliance. This is a social enterprise based in Geneva, and they are sourcing their cocoa from Ecuador, also producing the chocolate in Ecuador, which is great in terms of value distribution. I mean, most of the value is still in Ecuador, and yes, we are moving forward with this partner as well.
Excellent. So Inès, then why don't you share with us what the platform looks like?
Maybe before that,
which technologies, or how tech helps you, in fact.
Sure. So as you might imagine, we are working today with Excel spreadsheet. This is not possible. Knowing what we need to do with equal profit, that means first we need to collect the costs of each actor in the supply chain. We need to calculate the cost per kilo. We need to fix the final price of the product, as well as calculating also the profit distribution according to our model. And in order to start then the transaction. So technology is just a crucial component of the success of equal profit. And that's why we are today moving forward to the development of, we call it a smart logistic management platform to implement equal profit.
Thank you. And so which technologies does your platform use?
The platform today has different modules. One of the modules is mathematical modeling. As you can imagine, the distribution of profit will be very different if we implement it on a coffee bag or on a cow. So depending whether they are a linear transformation or not, the model will be very different. There is also a module in terms of risk assessment and risk analysis, how we can mitigate the risks of each actor in the supply chain. So we need discrete simulations in order to do that. We are also using machine learning algorithm in order to verify whether the data that has been entered into the platform is correct or not. And finally, digital trust technology. Blockchain is one solution, but we are also very eager to look at other digital trust technologies because blockchain notably is very energy consuming and as well very costly.
And what does your platform look like?
Today we have an MVP in place, and this is how it looks like. So you can see that this is the dashboard for one of the actors in the supply chain. They can put directly their costs using questionnaires on the platform, and they can also have more than one supply chain certified. So this is what you can see on the bottom of the slide. What happens is once we have collected all the data from each actor in the supply chain, we validate it and we calculate the cost distribution, which will have an impact on the profit distribution. What is very new, I think, and innovative is that everybody has an eye on the cost per kilo of each actor. So that's how we break power dynamics, is that the retailer not only has an eye on what is the farmer's cost per kilo, but also vice versa.
So now we have a clear picture of why technology is crucial in order to leverage equal profits impact. So what are your next steps?
So as you can imagine, we need funds. We need to raise funds in order to do this platform, to develop this platform on all the modules that I have just mentioned. For that, we have also we are willing to move towards an academic partnership. What is crucial for us is raising funds is one thing, and it's a prerequisite that is clear. However, we don't want to raise funds anyhow and with any whom. We really need that funds and raising funds match the equal profit values. And for that, it's not only about the statu quo of the supply chain, but it's also about the statu quo in fundraising that we need to transform. So our next question, and that's what we are working currently, is how to provide and how to transform the shareholding structure, how to transform the voting rights in order to match our values and in order to share value equitably. So it's like another supply chain that we are working on, but the financial supply chains.
Thank you, Inez, and also for creating a concrete picture into what this really means, this relation, first of all, the importance of technology, the concrete importance that technology has in today's world when it comes to scaling social impact. But additionally, how we need to think critically about this relationship between technology and financing technology in order to achieve social impact goals and social innovation goals, which are increasingly important for business, in addition to government and civil society as we approach 2030. So thank you very, very much. And so on that note, I would hand it back to the audience and also give you a chance if you did manage to put anything in the Mentimeter to bring that up and raise the discussion. And that would be the end of our monologue and an invitation to have a dialogue. Are there any questions? Let's see. Julio, are you there?
Of course I am. Look, we have quite a few questions, so let me take this role then. The first one is, okay, equal profit approach. The question is more to Inés, to you, Inés. To which extent does it also cover risk exposure from the different participants, next to cost?
That's an excellent question. We are working on it. As mentioned in the Smart Logistic Management Platform, we are working on a risk module. The aim is to see how each actor reacts due to different risks, be it environmental risk, political risks, and then to help them mitigate their risks. So I can give you an example. Let's say one of the actors is very weak in terms of one of the risks we have evaluated and one of the scenario we have been running thanks to the discrete simulation. The objective of equal profit is then to say, okay, maybe this actor doesn't have an insurance in order to mitigate that risks, and we will help them add these insurance costs into their cost calculation. So that's why we are transforming and transferring risks into a quantification of in terms of costs. So I hope it responds to your question. Thank you very much, Andreas.
Okay, so this is there was the other one. Now, this Andreas has also a question which ties to what you just said about the risk being calculated. So could you explain the role of technology in the profit sharing approach? How and you leapfrog on this to make this a viable solution? Okay.
So the role of technology in this sense, and here maybe you are mentioning the mathematical model. The objective is that now we are calculating profit distribution according to an Excel spreadsheet. Tomorrow we want to be able to adapt this model to any type of supply chain, to any type of product, and for that we need a mathematical model. So we are working on it. My one of the person in the team is a PhD in IT and supply chain, and this person helps as well. He's the CTO, so he helps on building this mathematical model. The objective as well is to be able to work with small enterprises, and as you have seen, we have been working until now with 2 social enterprise, but to be able to move forward with multinational companies, which have much more complex supply chains.
Thank you very much. This is also a good tie into the next question, because like international companies, perhaps they don't want that much transparency. Here, Stefan Buchsteiner asks, couldn't an alternative to equal profit be include a pollution and inequality fee in the pricing scheme, similar to the carbon dioxide price, which is potentially quite powerful?
That's an excellent question. We are fully aware that our model is not complete because it doesn't integrate environmental KPIs. That is our next step, is to include, I didn't mention it because I wanted to focus on profit distribution. I think it's already a huge topic. But one of the modules that we are building is CO2 or GHG calculation for each step of the supply chain. So how much and what is the externalities that each actor is creating per activity. And this will lead to a kind of a posology, like you can see on medicine, in terms of seeing what everybody has as a total costs or total externalities in terms of environmental footprint. Then what we do with this, how do we mitigate it at the origin? This is another question, and that's will be an exciting topic to work on in the future.
Great. This question, I would like to dig deeper on it with you, Rachel, because you work also with other social impact people. Why is not such a easy look, tax those guys and that's it? They have the incentive to change, not enough. Or is it enough? And actually, this is just an alternative, using technology to make like everything transparent.
Let me make sure I understand the question. Can you say it one more time?
Yeah, like Stefan asked, look, an alternative to having all this tracking and the transparency and the analysis and the profit sharing would be to just plainly put a tax on inequality or pollution. Like you say, if you're unequal, then you have to pay more. And then the companies like pressed into changing their ways, and they have like the burden of having to find a way to be fair. Because the great advantage of equal profit in this case is that they offer this way, right? They come to the company and say, look, we have the technology to show you how to be fair. But perhaps they want to decide for themselves what is fair or not. And such a tax would make like this easier for the company to just like, okay, that's a cost we have to bear, but we can afford to be slightly unequal.
Yeah, so it's a really excellent question, and obviously putting a tax on companies that would sort of force them to behave better is if I'm misunderstanding the question, please forgive me, is absolutely an approach. And it is probably a necessary approach. However, what also is necessary is these kinds of new initiatives, such as Inés's, that actually transform the paradigm. So the paradigm that we're working within is one that doesn't always support transformation, and putting a tax is sort of a way to deal with the situation that we find ourselves in, a really important approach. But in order to move forward and really try to tackle the challenges that we're seeing and that are incredibly complex and systemic challenges, if I may use the word, these kind of bottom-up initiatives where people find a way, people like Inés and Equal Profit find a way to, okay, shift the way it is that we understand and work with a problem, the potential for it to take hold and actually contribute to transforming that system is enormous. Taxes can help us deal with the systems that we're in, and these new initiatives, if they catch hold, can help us really transform those systems.
Thank you very much. I will go right to the next question. It's sort of for both of you, probably a bit more for Inés right now, which is how do you achieve confirmation on the mathematics and analytics of all that? Like, in fact, including trust. Like, how do you know that people are being honest when they tell their numbers and get this kind of profit sharing scheme?
Thank you very much, Andres. This is a very good question. We are ensuring that the costs that are being entered are right, thanks to an algorithm, a machine learning algorithm. And the more data there will be, the more accurate the algorithm will be as well. But as technology is not all, we are also willing to partner with an auditing firm in order to have not a systematic audit of all the supply chain actors in the chain, but a random sampling of actors, which will decrease dramatically the costs for supply chain actors. Maybe something that is of interest as well to you is that maybe you don't know, but the statu quo is that certification, often the cost of certification is on the shoulders of the farmers as well as on the cooperatives. What the difference with equal profit is that the cost of certification is distributed among the supply chain actors. And with this system of decreasing, what you will see is that we will have a decreasing cost per supply chain, the more supply chain we will certify. And I think that is a very interest for business, because we will tend ideally towards zero if we have a growing number of supply chain certified.
Great. This sort of answers the next and at the moment last question. How do you validate the self-assessment of stakeholders? You said you have machine learning sort of controlling this, and in the auditing, we still have a few minutes. People, if you want to ask one more, oh, I see, and a new question here. Is it possible to, It's possible to validate that the validation might be possible, but what about digital products? Okay, how do you work with data, with other kind, not physical products like a chocolate or something like that?
That's a good question. For the moment, we are really focusing on the food and beverage industry. We might go towards other industry like the textile industry. It's a good question. I haven't thought too much about services. For the moment, we're working on products. And I think we will, if you have an example of what exactly you mean by digital product, Bettina,
I can give you the example, a very good example. Okay. Easy here is if you think about India and the houses, they're full of people just coding, right? All these guys, in a way, they are also your coffee guy there doing the coffee. He's just but coding. But it's the same kind of idea. They are producing something, but this product is an electronic product. And the poor coder there in India is probably taking cents while the guys making the game and creating the new Clash of Clans are, you know, so that would be your example for a digital product with the same situation.
Thanks for explaining. So exactly, that would be a very similar situation in the sense that we would calculate what is the cost of those developers. And in the calculation of those costs, we are making sure that each person that is working is receiving a living wage or a living income in the sense for farmers, for example. So we would make sure we would do exactly the same calculation until the product, the final product. So the game, for example, that you just mentioned, and we will calculate how much everybody needs to earn or according to our model.
Great. Thank you very much, Inés. Thank you very much, Rachel. This has been a very insightful. Well, there we have another question. I was about to close it. How often do you trade with firms in Africa? Is Africa also on your radar, Inés, and of your colleagues?
Yes, it is on our radar. For the moment, we have two pilot products. As mentioned, we have coffee from Mexico and chocolate from Ecuador. The next one is a fruit in Brazil, and we're clearly willing to move forward towards Africa. Why? Because I have been working myself in Ivory Coast. I know very well the situation there for coffee and chocolates, and I'm willing to make a huge impact in Africa because I think here you have the solution is quite problematic for some raw materials.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we have another digital question. Thank you very much, Bettina. Hosted excellent questions, all of them. This one is also pretty cool. She means that data fair share, like she's thinking about the data that we give as a product also being something that, how can you share that fairly, like the profit gained from it. Her example, for example, WhatsApp doesn't charge anything to the consumer, right? We are the product for them, right? But it's not fair because the value is much higher than the service.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good question. To be honest, I haven't thought it so much. I prefer not to provide an answer like right now, but happy to think about it and to continue the discussion and to take that into account into our model as well. That's a very good point. But I think it's a bit different from what we have been mentioning until now. Now you're talking about free services against data privacy, data policies. Those are different questions. But thank you very much, and I will keep it in mind.
And actually, I would say that for social, so at least at the Competence Center for Social Innovation, this would be a really exciting research question to think about this in the context of social innovation and social impact. So, Bettina, feel free to send me an email. I have some colleagues that might be interested in thinking about that.
Cool. I think what Bettina's brought up is quite an interesting jump to the end, because I can conclude here, but sort of tell you about a teaser about what's coming up for us. Because, for example, this topic of data security or my value for the many devices that now collect my data, for example, IoT, right? Now, every car of ours, people driving electric cars are going to know how we drive, what we listen when we're driving. And those are the topics of tomorrow. So let me show you the topics that are coming. Like this afternoon, we are having gender mobility, talking about how the difference between how men and women move about like moving about, meaning I want to go to another city. How do we go about it? Just a drive, or do I take the train, etc.? We have then leadership in security, followed by secure and private computing. Both those topics here have to do with the data stuff that Bettina talked about. The first one is sort of a fail story. We're interviewing a person whose company went bankrupt because of data breaches, and how do you handle that? And as a leader, as someone that leads a company. And the second one has a bit to do with the IoT topic directly and our data being distributed. Then we have sort of as you can see, a lot of topics coming up. I just want you to have like a brief view of what's, no worries, this can be found.
A very brief view.
yeah, because people want to finish their lunch, go back to work. Hey, thank you very much, Inés. Thank you very much, Rachel. This has been a very insightful session and a very good start for our digital week. Some of you asked me, oh, but I missed the digital week, where do I go now? No problem, all of our slots are going to be made public at a later point, probably in 1-2 weeks, in forms of videos in the Executive School channel from the University of St. Gallen. And about the Folien presentation, people are asking about that as well. This I have to see on a presenter by presenter basis. Usually they also make that available for you, and otherwise you can see it anyway on the recordings. Do you, Rachel or Inés, have any final words for our public here?
Beyond thanking everyone for their attentiveness and for their excellent and thought-provoking questions, and once again sharing Rachel Brooks Ames at the Competence Center for Social Innovation. If you have any questions or want to continue the discussion, we absolutely want to talk to you. It's a really exciting area of research, and we would love to be in touch. So thank you once again for joining me. And Inés, do you have any final comments?
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Julio, for your invitation. Again, I'm very happy to be able to share this kind of new model, and happy also to keep in touch with any participant who's willing to pursue the discussion separately. Thanks again, and have a great day and great digital week.
Thank you very much. So bye-bye, people. Perhaps I see you in the afternoon with Inés Kafkan-Kagan and gender mobility. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.